Welcome to a lovely balmy summer's afternoon. I hope it's as hot and sunny for you as it is for me. This is the BIMA webinar on how to win a BIMA award. My name is Matt Sullivan. I'm the MD at BIMA. My partners in crime today are Alan. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself in a minute, who is at an agency called Hey Summer Friday and is also the chair of our awards council. And we have Becky at Deloitte, who is on our Inclusive Design Council and is going to talk to you a little bit in a bit about the Inclusive Design Award. But the deal with today is that I would hope, if you're aware of the BIMA Awards and you've entered them before, if not, you're thinking about entering them today, this year, you're probably at the stage, like most people, where you've spent the last month or so going through the work that you think is most likely to stand a chance with winning something. That's generally the sort of process, right? You look at the work you've done over the past year and a half, the stuff you're really proud of, and then you look at the industry, the trade awards, and you start to dissect the categories and see where your best work might fit, because everybody wants to win an award. Hopefully you're at that stage. You've got an idea of the best work that you've produced recently. You're now thinking about categories, but you need to go into the nuts and bolts, a bit of detail on all of the awards, because to stand the best chance of winning them, right, you need to understand the criteria. You need to understand how they're judged, what the overall purpose of the awards is, because you've got to kind of develop a story for each and every one. They're all very different. So today's about the detail, going into the detail so you can start to craft that entry and stand the best chance possible of winning an amazing BIMA award. I think this is just for a bit of context, really, because there are a lot of trade associations out there, a lot of media organizations that have their own awards, and they all try and tie them in with their general purpose and the reason that they're in the world. So BIMA is like a trade body for tech and digital. So there's going to need to be a digital or technology element to all of your work. We'll cover that off in a minute. The general purpose, though, is that we're a kind of unique moment in time in digital, and we would articulate it quite often in a short way of that you're in the driving seat of change at the moment. So whether you're producing social media campaigns, influencing campaigns, or whether you're building platforms or involved in digital transformation, you're kind of impacting a lot of people's lives with the technology and the platforms that you're pushing out into the world. And we need to make sure that that change is positive. So we tend to attract people to the community that understand that. So there's a lot of good stuff that happens. So we focus all of our activity around three key pillars. We focus on the skills gap in digital, attracting a long-term pipeline of talent to the industry and looking after the people that we've got. We focus on culture, which is our second pillar, which is basically people and the planet. We do a lot around sustainability, more on that in a moment. And then our third pillar is growth. The awards fits firmly in that, because you can't do all the good stuff in 1 and 2 if you're not 3. So this is a new business initiative for you if you're an agency, right? And don't try and mask that fact. It's about showcasing your best work, getting it out there, making sure that client eyes can see what you're capable of as an agency. And the awards is a really, really good way of doing that. It's basically just providing a robust judging process. Yeah, so the clients get brilliant testimonials into the work that you've done. That's what we're here to do for you. We've been established since 1985. A lot of people say, what was digital in 1985? And we all start to get a bit nostalgic about booking holidays on CFAX and things like that. I can remember that because I'm old. So we're here to recognise the outstanding work from UK Digital. We're going to cover off the eligibility in a little bit more detail at the moment, but UK does get mentioned a lot. We want you to put forward work that is either from a UK client or UK agency. It doesn't matter if some of that work was activated overseas, as long as it started from a UK agency or brand. If not, it can be from an overseas agency, but the work was activated in the UK. So there has to be a UK element to it. Well, it's about benchmarking the best. I've covered that off. It's largely agencies that enter on behalf of their clients. And again, we'll go into a bit more detail about getting your clients on board. That's really, really important. And this is also an amazing way to attract and retain talent as well. But here's the detail. This is why you're on the webinar. So first of all, the dates. I would hope that with most people, you're at that stage, like I said, where you've got a good idea of the work that you're most proud of and that is likely to be entered into our award or other awards at the moment. So now the process is find the right categories in the BIMA Awards and start to craft that entry, the content for it. So the early bird deadline is the 16th of June, but the entry deadline is the 21st of June, but you can go right up until the 4th of August. There is a small administration fee that increases if you go to the late deadline. So you've got time, right? But ideally, you're thinking about the work, and you've also maybe got in contact with the clients that you're working with on that work to say, look, we're thinking about putting it forward for an award. Get them on board now, as soon as you can. It always runs over. Please don't do it. But by the 4th of August, we'll never have 100% in. We always need another week or so to get them in and tidy them up. But on the 5th of September, a month later, we start our judging. We've closed our judging application process at the moment. We've got nearly 200 judges that have been put forward, and we're now going through that really long task of splitting everybody up and allocating them to categories. So we've got the right balance of strategists, creatives, and clients and technologists in all the categories to review the work for us. If you're just desperate to get someone in and you've missed that, drop us a note. There are still a few spaces that we can get you in. Round one judging, 5th to the 15th, you do that in the comfort of your own home and you score the work. All the best scores go through to round two. That's the fun bit. And we'll go around the country and host in-person judging from the 20th to the 21st of September. The shortlist will be announced a couple of weeks after that. That's like the finalist list, if you like. And then we all head down to a cabaret club called Proud on the Embankment, which is where we were last year. We hire the whole venue and we celebrate in style on the 21st of November. So that's what your time frame looks like. I think the key thing for now, though, is get an idea of the work you want to put forward and start thinking about what category you're going to put forward for, get the clients involved if you're an agency, and also start to think about the questions and crafting that content, because it takes quite a bit of time. If you're on this webinar and you're a BIMA member, you get one entry for free. An entry is per category. So if you want to enter something into, say, B2B and also business transformation, that's 2. That will be 2 costs. But you get your first one for free. And then, as I said, the 3 early bird, standard, and late deadlines, those prices reflect the change in date. So at midnight on those dates, it switches and you just pay a little bit more. So get it in as early as you can. You can go back and alter your entry as well. So it's just the best thing is just commit to it now and you get the cheaper rate. Eligibility. So I covered it off very quickly, but it's BIMA. Everybody knows that it's the trade body for digital and tech. So there has to be an element of digital and technology in it. But what doesn't these days? But that's a must-have. The work itself should have been activated and let's say, in the public domain from the 1st of January last year right up to now. And you also want to try and make sure that the results that you put forward are also within that eligibility period. You can reference stuff that took place before that. And quite often that's all part of the storytelling, right? What's happened and the challenges the client and the agency have had beforehand. But the judges will be asked to take the metrics and the impact work from the 1st of January last year right up to now. I've already covered off point 2, but just to reiterate that, it's for a British agency company for the British market. So the work has to have come from brains from an British company, or it can be from an overseas agency that have activated the work in the UK. There has to be a UK element to it. Okay. I should have covered off the housekeeping, really. If you want to ask questions, you can use the Q&A bit and we will get to it. It's a webinar, so you can't heckle. You have to use the Q&A facility, I'm afraid. So you've got an idea of your work. You've spoken to your client. If you're an agency, if you are the client, you've spoken to your team and say, look, this is really good. We're really proud of this piece. I think we've got a chance of winning an award. You need to think about the categories and how to craft the entry. If you look at our website, most of the information you need is there, and you can download an entry information pack, and that has all of the categories, and all the categories have a criteria to them. Alan is going to talk through the categories in a bit more detail in a moment, but now's the time to go into the awards portal and start to have a look at it. So don't just kind of craft that entry offline in a shared Google Doc with your team, and then the day before the deadline start to try and populate the platform. You can save it and go back. So now's the time to get familiar with it. So it's called Awards Force. It's really popular. You may have used it before if you're used to entering industry awards. Just go into our website, look at the main navigation bar, click on awards, and then you can click on the entry button and it will take you through to a separate platform called Awards Force. You do need to log in and set a password because it's a new platform. You don't use your BIMA website password. You set up a new one for that. Okay, we're flying through it. Alan, we've got some new categories this year. I mean, you know, yourself and the award council have been putting in a lot of work into what we should, well, what's new. So can I hand over to you, Alan? And if you don't mind talking through the groups, the categories and the type of work that the judges will be looking to see within them.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hi, everyone. So I think before I kind of get into some of the specifics, you know, at macro level, the council wanted to kind of refresh and iterate. I think we're always looking to move forward and reflect, you know, changes in our environment, changes in the way our clients are asking us to do work or whatever. So you know, we look to create new categories. We look to merge some categories. A lot of that was based on analysis of last year's entries and you know, previous. So you know, looking at where we could potentially just you know, optimize. We reworded some descriptions. We separated out the groups and just, you know, ultimately kind of added a few more things in to make you know, to make some more interesting statements. In terms of kind of, you know, what's really new, the sector group can, you know, stayed the same, but we split the impact. Sorry, we split the content and innovation kind of category into groups into two. We thought it was better just in terms of like how we could actually kind of group things together and where people could look for the best kind of guidance in terms of where they would want to enter their awards. Impact, we added one or two, you know, reworked things there. And ultimately, you know, one of the bigger changes was in adding some of these special awards. I'll talk a little bit about the sort of member and client of the year, but we'll let Becky talk about inclusive design. But certainly, you know, those you know, the sort of member and client of the year, for us, we thought it was interesting to really add this to celebrate the members of our, you know, in our community who really echo those kind of key pillars, you know, align with the purpose that Matt talked about earlier, and have shown sort of genuine leadership qualities within the community, you know, sort of helping us to kind of think about what's important to our members and our clients. So, you know, we look forward to seeing some entries there. I think it's a great opportunity for you to obviously kind of promote yourselves, but promote some of your best client relationships as well. In terms of some specifics, again, you know, we added in things like Web3 and AI. You know, they're of course kind of quite buzzy right now, but certainly I think, you know, we're at a stage where we should imagine there are going to be some interesting use cases, interesting projects that have gone live in the last year or so. So we thought that was a great opportunity to bring them in now. And the you know, the other key thing for us was the work that we did with the Sustainability Council to add a new judging criteria to the mix. And so, as well as you know, looking at results and as well as looking at the strategy and the craft, we also wanted to really look at the impact on the planet and whether it's been done very intentionally from the beginning of the project, or whether, you know, it's an interesting way for our members to maybe look back and think about some of the impact they may have been able to create. And ultimately, this is kind of year one of this. So we hope we'll have some interesting lessons from this, and hopefully continue to iterate and improve upon how we integrate that piece of the overall story. We think now is the time to really reinforce this need, and as marketers. So yeah, we're excited to continue to see how that will work for us as an awards group moving forward. Hopefully that makes sense. Happy to try and answer any specific questions if we get some coming in.
So all of those categories, Alan, have another criteria that entrants can find on the website. Yeah, so you can go onto the website, click on the category, and there'll be a description around the sort of work we're hoping to see within those categories.
Yeah, we tried to refine those and make them quite clear as to the kind of the kind of work that you would enter into that category, and also a little bit around what the judges are looking for sure, so that we can kind of help a little bit of coaching within that short description, but yeah, hopefully it makes sense. We're not radically different from other award shows in terms of the way that we kind of categorize things or whatever, so hopefully it's relatively familiar for everyone, but yeah, I think the bigger piece is around thinking through that, the impact on the planet, and how you can potentially tell that piece of the story.
And with regards to feedback, so we can advise on categories. We obviously can't advise on the content and how write the actual kind of material and copy that you put in the entry form. But if somebody sends through a link to even just a case study on the site, right, and said, "Oh, can you let me know, is this applicable for the UX category?" We can give that level of feedback, right? Okay. So if anyone's not 100% sure where their work might fit, just send it over, and we'll give you some advice on the most appropriate home within the categories for that bit of work.
Yeah, or hit me up in the Slack if you're on Slack or whatever. Just feel free to reach out. We'll do our best to help that. Yep.
Okay. So all of those categories would classify as an entry. We went through the entries earlier, with the exception of one, and that's the reason Becky's joined us today. So Becky is the co-chair of the BIMA Inclusive Design Council, and they had this really cool idea last year that they wanted to run their own award. So you can opt in to the Inclusive Design Award, and it's not going to be an extra cost. You just tick a box in the entry form. But Becky, are you okay just to give us a bit of history and why yourself and the council wanted to introduce this and the type of work you might be looking for?
Yeah, of course. So hi everyone, as Matt said, I'm Becky, I co-chair our Inclusive Design Council. And as a council, I guess we've banded together to drive understanding of what inclusive design is, but also equip people and organisations with the knowledge and the skills to actually address barriers that do mean that millions of people are actually excluded from the digital services that we end up building. So we discussed last year creating this Inclusive Design Award because we wanted to really recognise the people who were already making steps to help address those barriers, but also encourage people to start thinking about this across all of their work. And by making it an opt-in, I think what we're doing is encouraging people to look at how inclusive design and accessibility can be woven into everything that you're already doing, rather than having it as a separate piece of work that you might be looking to achieve. So this is the second year that we've done it now. As Matt said, it's opt-in, and we generally look for three things. So we have three criteria that we used last year as well, and I can add a bit of, I guess, colour to what those might look like. But the first one is innovation. And we're really looking for projects that demonstrate the use of innovation to create the inclusive society that we want around us. But importantly, this can be within the idea itself, it can be within the design that's applied, or it can be in the approach that you've taken. So it is really quite broad, but we just want to see something that really sparks a bit of interest and makes us think a bit differently. The second criteria, and I would say the one that we're really wanting to zero in on, is the craft itself. So we want to see something that's acknowledged kind of new or an existing digital experience, and the barriers to access that might be captured within it, and then look at the response of how the project has developed and designed a more inclusive user experience off the back of that. And I guess a top tip from last year that we saw some real gaps in is actually, it's really important here to demonstrate the approach that you took. And I would say that's probably going to be similar for a lot of the awards here, but in other categories. But thinking about how you talk about your approach to research, your approach to design, your approach to implementation, rather than just focusing solely on the outcome of the project itself. So that's definitely something which we'd love to see a bit more of this year. And then the last piece of criteria then is impact. So we want to hear from you how the work that you've done has helped to have an impact not only on society, but think about the strategy that's being created. So is what you're doing going to then impact other work that is kind of adjacent to what you've looked at? Is it going to change the way people approach different processes going forward? So we want to have a think about that bigger picture and how that craft is being built. But yeah, that is the three pieces of criteria that we're looking at. It will be within your existing entries, and we would like to think that those criteria actually would support you in other categories as well. But if there are any questions around that and what we're looking for, then more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, Becky. I think I mentioned use the Q&A if you have any questions, and we will get to them. Right, so how are they judged? It's really important that you kind of have a bit of empathy with the judges and put yourself in their shoes, and you understand what that process might look like when you're crafting your entry. So 2 rounds of judging. One is online. So what will happen is the judges are all being allocated categories right now. So let's say you enter your piece of work into a category. There's likely to be anywhere between 10 up to 15 people that will be in that category in round 1. They all sign an NDA. They only get access to the work through the awards platform that is switched on and off at certain times. They'll get a link with a password in Awards Force where they go and view the work. So in round 1, those individuals are carefully picked and selected so we get a balance, but then they all go in and review the work and they score it in the criteria that I'll talk about in a moment. At the end of round 1, when we've had all of those people scoring all the different work, we then move through to round 2. This is the way we take entries from round 1 to round 2. So there is no kind of formula or exact percentage of work that goes through. What we do is we look for a natural break in the scoring, and we'll always try and be as generous as we can. Working on awards for a lot of years, you do always find that natural break, and you always end up putting a few more through than what you originally envisaged, but that's good, right? We need to be generous, give everything the best chance possible. So let's say we've got 30, 40 entries in a category. There might well be a big break in the scoring, and there'll be a cluster of around 7 or 8 or 10. But there might be the cluster of around 15. It's that top cluster that we put through to round 2. So as long as we've got a minimum of 10 people reviewing all the work in round 1, the best work tends to surface and will appear in that cluster. So that's people judging the work on their own over a glass of red wine in the evening, usually, I think. Then the work goes through to round 2. That's the robust bit where we get the judges in to debate the work. So then the judges come in and meet in person. We've got a judging session in Scotland, Manchester, Bristol, Bournemouth, and then a 2-day judging event in London. People come in, it takes half a day to judge a category. The judges will go through those shortlisted entries one by one, chaired by somebody, and they debate the work. What's really interesting, and I think is really cool, is the work always changes position, because people are influenced by others' opinions, because you've got creative strategists, clients, technologists all in the room, and you've got to be open-minded and take on board everyone's perspective. They debate the work one by one. There's no kind of show of hands, so you're not kind of no peer pressure to find a winner. You have that open debate, and then the judges will score what they think should be the winners in each category in private. And no one in that room knows who the winners are until we announce them on the night in November. The criteria. This is really important that you take this into consideration, because with our entry form, you can be quite creative. We don't just ask you, describe the innovation, describe the craft, describe the impacts. There are lots of different categories. So you've got a couple of boxes where you can be quite creative, but you need to bear in mind, this is how the judges are going to score your work. So you need to cover off these criteria. It's online, and you can find out a little bit more about them. Alan alluded to it earlier, there's a new criteria this year. So those criteria of innovation, craft, and impact are the 3 criteria traditionally the BIMA Awards have always stood for. In most categories, they'll be scored equally across those 3 criteria. Occasionally, it will change. So for example, the effectiveness award might be weighted slightly less around craft and maybe slightly less around innovation, but more around impact. But we've added a fourth criteria this year across all of the categories. Though the planet criteria will only account for 10% of your scoring, but we just felt it was really, really important that we recognize the work out there that is mindful of the impact it has on the planet. One question that has come up is that we have an environment category. So the difference is that we've added a planet criteria across all categories because we think everyone, whether you're running an influencer campaign or you're building a big platform for a client, you need to be aware of the way you build that, the way you activate that has an impact on the planet. That's going to cross every category. The environment category is using digital and technology solutions to get us out of this crisis that we're in. So there is quite a distinct difference. Everything needs to be mindful of the impact it has on the planet, essentially how it's activated and built. The environment category is how you're using innovation technology to save the planet. When you go in and you look at the categories that Alan took you through earlier, there'll be a description underneath each one, but it will also say how it's weighted. And it will probably say innovation, 30%, craft, 30%, impact, 30%, planet, 10%. Occasionally, they'll differ, so keep your eye on that. If I explained that clearly enough. Alan, anything else to add?
No. I mean, I think again, it's worth having a good read through the criteria, the sort of descriptions, because oftentimes, certainly my previous experience of entering in awards is there can be a few places where you could enter it and you can choose enter it multiple times. Of course, that would be awesome, but certainly trying to figure out where you think you have the best opportunity is often worth making sure you think your story is going to align really nicely with how the judges are going to review it. So and yeah, I think to your point around how to help your entry stand out, I think there's obviously a few fun ways to do that, but certainly really telling having a sort of thread through the line around what were you aiming to do, what were the results you were hoping to achieve, how close did you get to those things, did you exceed your expectations, did you fall short but you've got reasons why, all of those good things are, we judges love to get under the skin of the project and understand the challenges and the ways that you were brilliant in terms of creating solutions. So the more of that story you can tell is always really good.
Good. Okay. I think one point that does sometimes come up, a question we frequently get is, so Alan just mentioned that you can, of course, we'd love you to enter the work across multiple categories. Some of the judges might judge more than one category, but it's unlikely that, so judges don't know if it's won somewhere else. That's really important. So it would only be judged and win in its own right in each category. So sometimes when you see these awards, especially with BIMA awards, and a particular piece of work has cleared up with 5 golds, the judges don't know that it's already won a gold elsewhere. So that's really important. If you want to judge it, enter it into more than one category, please do. And no one's not going to vote for it because you've already won a gold. Nobody knows that. It's just judged against the other category, pieces of work in that category. Well, I didn't explain that very well, but I hope it made sense. Okay. So awards night, Chelsea does as the fun bit. Chelsea's busy organising the party. This is probably a good time, Chelsea, for you just to maybe cover off what you've got in store for November.
Yeah. So the awards night will take place on Tuesday, the 21st of November at Proud Embankment, which is just by Charing Cross and Embankment stations and also close to Temple Station. It was at this same venue last year, if you attended last year. If not, as Matt said, it's a really cool cabaret club. We'll be having 2 cabaret acts throughout the night as well. So yeah, it should be a really good evening. It starts around 6 p.m. with a drinks reception. and then we'll be seated at 6:45, and then it will be a full 3-course dinner with drinks as well. And then the awards presentation will be at about 8:30 p.m. At the awards, we will be giving out bronze, silver and gold awards for each category. So the bronze and silver winners will get a certificate, but the gold winners will get an actual trophy and be able to come up on stage and collect their trophy. So yeah, you'll have a physical trophy to take home with you if you're a winner, which is really exciting. And then we will have an after party starting at 10, and then we'll close at midnight. Yeah, we'll try and put in some cool kind of techie things into the awards for you as well on the night. So yeah, it should be a good evening. The tickets will open, it's in October when we announce our shortlist. So yeah, look out for that.
Okay. Becky, you'll be there presenting the Inclusive Design Award as well, right?
I haven't heard, but I can be.
Yeah, please do. Okay. Pitfalls to avoid. If you're entering a lot of awards, apologies if this comes across as a bit patronizing, but honestly, running these things, you just see it year after year after year after year, and it's just really important that you take this into consideration. If you're working for an agency when you're entering on behalf of your client and yourself, just get them involved as early as you can, because it's just more fun. They're more likely to give you more information based around metrics and results. Remember, everyone signs an NDA, so the clients can be confident in giving you that information. And then when they come with you on the 21st, I think it was, of November, Chelsea said, to Cabaret Club, they feel like they've been part of the whole process, and it isn't just like a token invite. They've won it with you, and it really strengthens that relationship you got with the client. And be bold and tell a story. The judges may well be judging 20, 30, 40 awards. So like, have some fun with it. If you've got anybody that is whether it's they've got a copywriter in their job title, most agencies have somebody that is the wordsmith, right? And give it to them, because bring it to life, because the more you do that, the better chance it stands. Because when your judges are reading so many, make it stand out, have some fun, give it some character. I think that's really, really important. And give it, a start, a middle and an end. That's like, talk about the client, the challenges the client's got, talk about the brief that you got from the client, how you approached it, how you dissected it, and then the end of it is the activation. And those metrics, the impact, will be scored on what the objectives are that you put out in the front of the entry. So they have to align, because you're not always judging apples and apples and pears and pears. A judge might be looking at different pieces of work. So the metrics and the results aren't always comparable. So what they'll do is they'll refer back to your objectives that you set out in the beginning. That's how they'll know whether the project was successful or not. Upload the right supporting material. A lot of people say, oh, do I have to do a video? If you can, if you've got the resources and you can put together a case study video, like, absolutely do it, because it does bring it to life and it helps. And you can use it, like stick it on your website, stick it in your creds. But people win awards and they don't have videos. But what I would say is, don't just share 15 JPEGs of email 1, email 2 and a diagram. Put it all in a PowerPoint, even if you've got static images, and at least that way you can make the judges read it in the sort of order that you would like, rather than just opening random JPEGs all the time. And you can put some narrative around those images and take the judge on a bit of a journey. So if you don't have a video and you're putting together images, put it all in one document at least, so the judge reads that and digests it in the order that you want them to. I've covered off results already, but try and put as much in there as you possibly can. There's a box within the entry form that specifically says for judges' eyes only. So that will never appear in the public domain. So when we promote the work and we put the case studies online, whatever you put in that box will never be seen by anyone outside the judges in that category that have signed an NDA. And again, they only get access to it in the short window of the awards judging. Check and double check. I mean, I'll go on about that. That really might be a bit patronizing, but just, again, it just does wind judges up when they've allocated a lot of time and it's just full of errors. It puts yourself on the back foot. Talking of feet, put yourself in a judge's shoes. Remember what I said earlier about scoring across their criteria. They have to actually score that criteria in a box. So you need to cover them off in your entry form. Otherwise, you're missing out on scores. And that's really important, right? In round one, you need those numbers to get through to round two. Something else, we haven't put it in here, but something else that always comes up, working on awards. A lot of people say, oh, it's only the big agencies that ever win awards. And it's just bloody not. Like, it's really not. It's quite, you know, if you're a huge networked agency and you've got Nike and millions of pounds, you can do some pretty cool stuff, right? But if you're a B2B agency and you've got a really dry, tricky brief, it's not as easy, but judges love that stuff. So it's not just the big agencies and the big creative stuff that wins awards. Judges, I think, are really mindful of a really challenging, dry, tricky brief. And they love the fact that you've got under the skin of that. So don't just think it's the big showcasey stuff and you're going to be up against huge agencies and huge clients with big work. Because in fact, it's almost the opposite. You're more likely to hear a judge say, if I had that amount of money in that client, yeah, of course I could do some brilliant work. You're more likely to hear that than you are the other way around. So please don't just assume that it's that type of work that wins awards. It's absolutely not. And judges love a tricky brief.
Sorry, Matt, if you don't mind piling on, I think, you know, just to reinforce that point, the other thing is that Matt mentioned, we do match judges to, you know, and their experience, their backgrounds to the categories that they'll be looking at. So it is very true that, you know, people will admire the time and effort and the craft that's gone into a tricky one, you know, something that can be quite challenging subject matter, or something that has a small budget, or you're a small team or whatever. You get a lot of empathy, I think probably more in BIMA than maybe in some other awards, you know, the sense of community and support that the judges really feel for some of the work that won last year, for instance, you know, wasn't for big groups at all. It was fairly small regional agencies maybe launching a little, you know, like a little initiative for themselves, a local college or whatever. I remember one of those, can't remember the specific project, but certainly, you know, that kind of work does get a lot of traction as well. So yeah.
Okay. I think we're probably, I don't know where, next slide. There you go. Does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to throw it in the Q&A quickly. I know we've seen a couple of things in there. Thanks, Alan. You've been answering them. This has also been recorded because I know a lot of people can't make it, so they'll go back and watch on catch up. But the most important thing is, like, reach out to us, right? I mean, Chelsea gets a lot of them, but we get them every day now, don't we, Chelsea? Questions coming in about what is, you know, can you tell me a bit more about this category, or would this work be appropriate for this category, and so on. We've got one here from Kim. What do you recommend to do around the challenges of getting client permission to enter? Well, I don't really, to be honest, I run awards. I very seldom do I actually enter them. I just tell people that it's best to get the client on board. But Alan, it might be a good place to answer that, because you've won awards and entered them. Is there that you got any tips, Alan, to try and persuade the client to kind of get on board? Because it's so important, right?
Yeah, I think, you know, sometimes the challenges might be around clients being nervous about results being, you know, published or whatever, or a lot of people seeing what they might perceive as kind of, you know, internal intelligence. I think, you know, again, it's worth reinforcing to your clients that all the judges are NDA'd, and you know, that doesn't necessarily, you know, that all of those results that we'll look at, whether in round one or round two, and talk about in round two, they're not going any further. So I think that's often a big hurdle. You know, I think the other thing is, you know, it can depend if you know, clients, you know, what they see as the value to them personally or to their teams. You know, I think, again, it's always a great sense of recognition and kind of, you know, kind of personal achievement or growth for your own CV or whatever, to be able to say all of these things. So, you know, I think it's not necessarily about the night out or whatever. It's really more about career development, about reputation enhancement. And for me, I think it's, you know, clients often love to be associated with projects that have done well internally, and it's a good way for them to be able to talk about that in outgoing reviews with the bosses or whatever. So, you know, it just depends on the relationship you have with your client, and if you understand a bit around, you know, what makes them tick as a group, as their culture. So probably a couple of things like that, but oftentimes the biggest one is that it's all very much, you know, it's pretty a well-kept secret. Everything that's entered, confidential is the word I was looking for. Sorry. Yeah.
Chelsea, I think one was put out that you said you were going to answer.
Yeah, so someone asked if we can see the 2022 winners. So yeah, there's a link on the website for 2022 winners, or I can send it around afterwards, or I can put it in the chat now actually. So yeah, you can see last year's winners and what they put in.
Okay. And another one is, sorry if I missed this, have the judges been announced? They are about to be announced. So we do it in 2 stages. Most of the judges will be announced very soon. We're just going through, like I said, it's really important that we get the right balance of judges in every category. So that's quite a long process. That'll be ready within a week, I think, certainly by next week.
Yeah.
And there'll be a few more after that, because there's sometimes a few gaps here and there. So there'll be another smaller wave of a few late judges announced later on. And there's a section on the entry form called "Tell us about your team." What are you looking for exactly here? Bios are more related to the work we're entering. This is, I need to go back through and look at the form. This will be about the people, just so we can associate people to the work and not just the agency name. So when we promote it, we can give people social assets and we can talk about the team behind the work. So it doesn't necessarily need to be too much information about what they actually did. I mean, that can be part of it, but certainly we'd like team names. So when we get that winning piece of work, we understand the agency name, but it's great if we've got some details of the team behind it as well. Anything else? Or I missed anything? So Chelsea's answered that. Any other questions? Good, means everything makes sense. So, like I said, hopefully you're at the stage where you've got an idea of the work that you think stands a chance. Start thinking about the categories that it could go into. Start thinking about getting the client on board. If you haven't put a judge forward, you know, try and do it quickly because it's really good. It's really important for next year as well, because to experience it as a judge means it's a lot easier to enter the following year. And then go into Awards Force and start to play around and have a look at it. And then either you can work within Awards Force and save it and go back, or you can get the entry template and start to craft it offline with your client and with the team. Good luck, everyone. See you at Cabaret Club in November to celebrate. Okay. Thanks, Alan. Thank you, Chelsea. Thank you, Becky. Enjoy the sun. See you soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Good luck. Bye.